In case the data is to be collected through interview schedule, then the researcher must introduce himself or herself to the person who is being interviewed, letting him know who you are and to which organization you belong to, and clarify the purpose of the research study, why you need to take the interview, and how the data or the information collected through interview will be utilized. You need to put the person at ease and establish rapport with that person so as to enable him to give information which is required. And you need to pose questions and keep in mind the principles of posing the question. You can start with a very generalized question and then go to very specific questions, or in other words, funnel style of asking the question. That is what you need to use. Once you have posed the question, you should not be in a hurry to get a response. You should give adequate time to the respondent to ponder upon the question and give response to the question. And while the respondent is answering the question, you should try to listen effectively. You should be able to maintain eye contact with the respondent, pay attention to what is being said, listen for both content and emotions behind it, try to evaluate the logic and consistency of the response, and you should also try to listen for the non-verbal communication that is accompanying the verbal communication. You should try to interpret the non-verbal behavior of the respondent to draw conclusion of what is being said, how it is being said, and what non-verbal behavior accompanies the response. You can also restate the response of the respondent, or summarize the response of the respondent, or repeat the response in order to make sure that you have understood the respondent clearly. In case of the feelings, you can mirror the feeling of the respondent to make sure that your interpretation of the feeling is correct. In case of any clarification that is required, you can ask the respondent to clarify, and if there is need to pose probing questions, then you can pose a probing question to the respondent. For example, if the researcher has posed a question, how do you plan instruction? And the respondent says, I sequence the content, then pose the next question, how do you sequence the content of the topic which you are going to teach? What are some of the principles you take into consideration while sequencing the content? And once you are getting a response from the respondent, try to take quick notes. And in case you intend to record the interview, then prior permission has to be sought from the respondent. So these are some of the guidelines which need to be taken into consideration for collecting data through interview schedules. The other tool which can be used to collect data or information are the observation schedules. And observations can be either non-participant observations, or observations can be participative observations. Now, when I say non-participant observation, then the researcher must introduce himself or herself to the person who is involved in observation, who is being observed. So once you introduce yourself, then you should be inconspicuous. You should not try to gain attention of the audience or the respondent or the process which is being operated by a number of people. You should observe the ongoing processes without creating any hindrance or without creating any problem for the ongoing processes. And you need to record as per the observation schedule whatever processes you are observing. You need to record as per the observation schedule, and you can pose few questions to clarify if certain activity or certain phenomena is not clear to you. You can pose probing question to the person who is being observed or who is involved in the process being observed. In case you are a participant observer, then you should become a member of the audience. For example, a researcher who is going to observe the classroom processes and he or she becomes a member of the class, then he has to become a student of that class, a fake student, and behave normally. That means he needs to behave like other students, and he need to participate in the activities which are ongoing in the classroom situation, and he need not pose that he is researcher or need not direct the activities in the classroom situation, and he has not to create any hindrance or problem. He has to be part of the ongoing processes and behave normally, and then after the class the researcher needs to prepare a report of whatever activities he has been part to and he has made observations. So these are the guidelines for interview schedule and observation schedule.